talking about boards. And are you frustrated with your board? Are you feeling like this? Are you just like, just ready to tear your hair out? Maybe you're crying. I once met a consultant who had been an executive director, and she told this story that she kept like a crying pillow in her office so she could sob silently into her pillow whenever she needed to. And if there's one thing that I think gets EDs feeling this way, the boards are often it. Now, who here, it's okay, we're not going to give you a hard time. Next week, are for those boards who are frustrated with their EDs. But do we have any board members here today live? Or if you're a board member who's watching the recording, I would love to know any aha moments that you have as well. I think they'll be specifically revealing. So give me a hi in the chat now if you are a board member yourself. So oftentimes while EDs are feeling super anxious, yay, we've got board president. That's right. Yes, Victoria, board president, and frustrated with your board. All right. Well, this is equally for you. All of this advice is going to help board members as well as it helps EDs, because at the end of the day, it's a relationship. So when EDs are typically feeling frustrated, their board as a whole or a majority of individuals are often experiencing these things. They're confused, they're anxious, they like hold on to the reins really tight and they say, no, we're not going to do it. We're too scared or we don't want to. They're frustrated. They've got a lot of frustration themselves, right? You're frustrated, they're frustrated. It feels like no one's on the same page sometimes. And then we have this other thing happen, false starts. We keep thinking like, yeah, we're going to try this. And it doesn't go that far, whether it's adding a new board member, doing a new initiative, changing direction for the organization. False starts are one of the biggest problems that happens as a result of all this anxiety, confusion, and frustration. Fortunately, there is a secret psychological diagnostic tool that goes with this picture, which I love to use. I can't claim that I created it. The credits are here. But this document, which was designed for managing complex change, and actually I believe it was designed for creating change in the education system, is like the perfect frustrated board diagnostic tool. And of these columns here, I think there are 5. There are actually 3 things that I want you to focus on most, because 2 of them, incentives and resources, actually I believe should be built into having a really great plan. So to me, those are the less important, but the other 3 are things that you really, especially as EDs, right? So if we're talking about EDs, what can you do? There are 3 things that you can do to really bring down your feelings of frustration and their feelings of frustration. The first is bring your vision, right? I'm going in order of this chart here. Vision, right? Bring your vision. Now, there's lots of resources that say the board sets the vision for the organization. Somebody made that up. That's not law. That's like best practices. And I'm not saying it's all bad, but the truth is, and especially these days, and I think that vision thing came from back in the day, I'm not going to say the exact date, I don't know. But nonprofits have gone through this shift where boards really actually managed the organizations. And they didn't govern, they governed and managed. And now boards really govern and they don't manage. You hire your executive director and a team to manage, unless you're like 100% volunteer working board, then you're still doing both. But if that's not so, there's a lot of advice that's just been repeated over and over and over again. I think it sounds good, but it doesn't really make sense in this context where boards are supposed to be governing and not managing. And I think this is one of them. When it comes to vision, what should boards be doing? Saying, hey, do we have one? And hey, are we focused on it? That saying, keeping the main thing, right? Keep the main thing, the main thing. That's really part of the work. But as executive directors and throughout your whole team, doing the work every day, that's where you're going to get all the good inspiration for a really great vision. So it's easier for you to bring the vision to your board than it is to ask for your board to give you a vision, right? Bring it to them and then discuss it. So show up with a strong vision at those board meetings. The next one is show up as a skilled leader. Now, maybe you need some skilled leadership improvement, or maybe you're just afraid to show up as a leader because they're your bosses. But even though boards hold that hiring and firing decision for the executive director, they're still going to rely on you as a leader. And you can certainly have a strong chair leader as well as a strong executive director leader. But if they don't see you as a leader, they are going to doubt your ability to lead the organization. So you have to show up as a leader for them, just like you show up as a leader for everybody else in the organization. And the other thing is, when we looked at that chart, this has to do with skills. Your board doesn't have the skills to run a nonprofit, probably. Maybe occasionally you get somebody on there who does, but for the most part, they don't have the skills. So if you don't show up with the skills, they're going to get scared and they're going to get anxious and they're going to start having all those fear reactions that are going to drive you crazy. Now, if you're a board member listening to this, I want you to be thinking, how can we tell our executive director that we want them to show up this way? You could show them this video even. And show up with a plan, right? Tell them you've got this. Not only do I have the skills, but I have a plan. Make it written, make it easy to show. It doesn't have to be a big, long document. It can be, a short summary. It can be sticky notes on a board. You just show them that you have a plan, right? That you know how you're going from point A to point B. And if you don't know how to get from point A to point B, say, well, I don't know how to get from A to B yet. That's really hard, but I can go from A to point X, and from X, I know how to get to B, right? Show them you've got that kind of plan. Now we're off of the managing complex change chart here. Don't try to make your board a fundraising committee. Now, if your board's already great at fundraising, by all means, don't stop them. Let them keep going. But there's two reasons for this. The small reason that's kind of going to make things easier for you, and the big reason why you should just do it no matter what. The small reason is that being a board member, asking someone to join a board, is a really big ask. In fact, many board members, they do it and they don't even realize the epic responsibility they have just taken on, that they are liable for this entire organization and its ability to achieve its mission. And that's plenty big of an ask. So until your board is kind of really doing all of that, don't try to also ask them to do something else. You can absolutely create a separate fundraising committee that is not a board committee. In New York State, where I am, we call this a committee of the corporation. It's a committee that you as the executive director kind of oversee. You don't even have to be on it. But it's probably good if you are, and certainly your development director, if you have one, should be leading this committee. And this is a committee of people who are just there to help you fundraise, and you didn't ask them to also take on the responsibility of being on the board. So it's easier to fill a fundraising only committee if that's what you need help with. Create committees of volunteers for whatever you feel like you could use a boost of help with. The other reason why I would really implore you to stop focusing on recruiting board members who have deep pockets and are going to be networked with the wealthy people. And that's because when we align wealth with power, we start perpetuating all the systemic inequalities. So systemic racism, for sure, that's been in the news very much. It's very much a real thing. There are other systemic inequalities and we just don't want to perpetuate those, right? So I implore you to keep your decision-making power separate from your financial power so that you're not bringing the entire history of inequity along with you into your boardroom, right? So if you just keep them separate from day one, you will have a much easier time promoting equity in your organization, as well as diversity on your board. I said that boards, their number one job is governance. And to me, I like to describe, there's a great article that says governance is governance, and it's a great article. It's in the independent sector if you want to look it up. It's been reprinted a number of times. But what does that mean, right? Governance is governance. And to me, great governance is about double checking. Do we have it, and is it good? And then being in charge of the emergency brake, saying, whoa, this is not good, and stopping it, or saying, whoa, we don't have this and we need it now, right? It's overseeing, it's watching, and you can't do that as a board member without just being a critical thinker, without being, looking at the information and asking critical questions. So don't try, you need your board, and your board is liable and they should help you with whatever you need help with. But if they're not at this point yet, where they're asking the critical questions about what's important for your nonprofit, then that should be your sole focus with them until you're there. And once you're there, you can start getting them to help improve the areas that need improving. Now, how do you do that, right? Because that's easy to say and really hard to do. And here's the secret sauce. It's not so much about changing what you as an executive director do. You don't need to change what's in your plan per se. You don't necessarily even need to change what's in your budget or what's in your reports. The trick is to change how you present this information to your board. And if they're not asking these critical questions, they're either all really stupid, which I highly doubt. Probably most of your board members are quite capable of learning and understanding things. You're creating this problem by not presenting the information well. And the way you present information can make it or break it about how people end up discussing and using that information, or if they end up discussing and using that information. So I shared an example a couple trainings ago when we talked about budgeting, and there's a great example I've provided you, and here's the link to it, with a free budget template. You might look at it at first and be like, oh my God, like, what is this thing? There's all these extra numbers in here. Those extra numbers are the new way of showing information to your board when it comes to your finances. And I know that's on people's minds right now, and it's an area where boards often get into the weeds. It's about how you describe the numbers, how you lay them out for your board, that's going to make all the difference. Same with your strategy, with success stories in your programs. For you as an executive director, show up as a strong leader, show up as a visionary, let them know you've got this, and present the information that proves that you've got this and shows them. It's okay to show where your organization needs work, but it should show them, it should, so that they can see it, so that they realize where they should be paying attention and aren't getting lost in the weeds. That's my training for today. If you'd like to schedule a one-on-one call with me, you're welcome to go to pivotground.com/apply. If you'd like that budget template to start showing your board things in a different way, you can go to the second link.